just to recap, we would have started with our phased reopening of schools for face-to-face back in November of 2020 with a pilot of 17 schools, from which we got extremely valuable data that allowed us to continue with the phased reopening of schools. To date, a little over 400 schools have been approved for face-to-face. 300 of them have actually started back in the face-to-face mode. Many are utilizing not just the face-to-face, but also the online, the audiovisual, the learning kit approach. To the extent there are students that have not even cracked open their books, and they are not online, and they are not watching or listening to any lessons, we would have started our mobile intervention in which our teachers and some tertiary students go into communities and find these students and teach them in small groups of up to 5 for 1.5 hours, 2 times per week. So we're making every effort to reach our students because we recognize how quickly learning loss happens and how long it will take us to get students back to where they were before the pandemic. Across the schools that have opened for face-to-face, the care and attention to the COVID protocols have been observed pretty well at schools. Schools are careful to ensure that students have masks, although some schools have gone too far in terms of dictating what kinds of masks students would wear. Of course, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has been in touch with these schools to let them know that they need to be more flexible than they are being. Additionally, as a result of the Ministry of Education's directives and the Ministry of Health and Wellness's physical inspection, if you go to these schools that are open for face-to-face, you would have seen proper signage to reinforce these COVID protocols. The classrooms have been configured to ensure that social distancing happens, and many teachers have students not only physically in front of them in the classroom, they have students online at the same time that they're imparting, to whom they're imparting lessons. There has been a lot of effort on the part of parents, teachers, principals, and others to help our children continue learning even through this pandemic. And I want to say commendations to all our stakeholders in the education sector. One of the mechanisms that we've put in place and required of our schools is that they report to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information religiously in terms of any incidents of actual or suspected cases. Not only that, but they have to report as well the action that they take once this is presented to them, so that at the ministry we understand the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic, the COVID-19 virus is having on our schools, and exactly whether it's our students or teachers or other support staff that are being impacted. In all the cases brought to our attention, the schools have handled it according to the Ministry of Health and Wellness's protocol. However, as you know, many of our students come from many different communities to attend school. Our risk-based model that has guided us in terms of our process continues to be used. We continue to input new data that we receive into the model. And as we analyze the data and as we go along, we cannot ignore the caution lights that we are seeing from this data. And so there has been a discussion this week with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. There's been a discussion with the cabinet at the cabinet level. And so this morning we called together our major stakeholders in the sector. That would include our principals, or members of the e-COVID task force, members of the JTA, just to give them an update as to what we're seeing in our schools from a global perspective. We understand that in each particular school, the principals and teachers would have their particular information, but we wanted to share with them from a global perspective and give them a sense of our thinking going forward, and that we did just before coming to this post-cab press briefing. And so what we would have told our stakeholders is that there has to be an adjustment in the go forward with our schools. And so at this time, we've indicated that our schools that are open for face-to-face are only allowed to have our exit exam students in the face-to-face mode, and that would be students in grade 6 at the primary schools and students in grades 11, 12, and 13 at the high schools. And in terms of the time frame for this, it's taking effect today until further advised. So in terms of the actual numbers, COVID numbers that we're seeing in our schools since we started face-to-face, as of February 21, 41 of our schools would have reported a positive or suspected case. Let me just get my actual numbers as are correct. Okay. Total number of confirmed cases among our student population would be 47, and 6 suspected cases among staff. There would have been 23 confirmed cases and 18 suspected cases. So at this time, that's the adjustment that we're making to those schools that are in the face-to-face mode. We want to let all of Jamaica know that we continue to ensure that the tablet and laptop rollout continue. We will, as of the coming weeks, be handing over laptops to our PATH students in our high schools in grades 10 to 13. Additionally, we will be completing the remainder of the 40,000 tablet distribution. I believe we have about 5,000 left to go, and we are distributing those as well. We will also be informing those who are eligible to receive the $20,000 grant towards the purchase of a laptop or tablet. We have begun that process. Our pilot that we did has been done successfully, and so we are at the point now where we are sending out notifications to roughly 18,000 families to let them know that they can go to the vendor to complete their purchase. Additionally, we continue as well with our efforts under the One Laptop or Tablet per Child initiative, and every week there is an entity or an individual who has come forward to give us more tablets or more supplies for our schools. And we want to say thank you, and those devices and the supplies will go to the needy students in our schools.